Hello, my name is Christina, and I have been a chronic migraine sufferer for years and years and years since I was in my 20s, so 20s, 30s, 40s, now I'm in my 50s. So I have been suffering for a long time. However, I wasn't aware that the symptoms I was experiencing were actually migraine. I hadn't knitted it all together to kind of establish that's what it was. So I was just enduring these symptoms as if they were randomly connected to something else. Actually, often we disregard ourselves as women in a way and assume that they're potentially associated with the menstrual cycle, or just slept badly last night or whatever. And in that way, I was just thinking, oh, I'm just a little bit fuzzy today in the head, or I have a strange taste in my mouth. I wonder why that is. But okay, never mind. You just learn to kind of ignore it. It's just like, oh, that's typically me. I'm getting this all the time, and not really noticing it as a kind of a symptom of something else that's going on. My sense of smell was also very acutely affected. Strong smells, perfumes and things like that. And, anything that was particularly aromatic, cheeses and things like that, very difficult. Sense of, sound as well was extremely, I'm very sensitive to sound. Loud television or music or anything like that would really make me feel very, very unwell, which accentuate my feelings of not feeling well. And I would often have to throw up and have nausea, and the symptoms would cascade potentially into something much, much worse. So it's interesting to then discover later that these were all signs and symptoms of migraine. And me coming from a background of life sciences, I've worked within clinical research and development, and the first study that I worked on was actually in migraine. So I felt that I was better informed than most. But it's interesting how, despite that, I was still not informed enough to have stitched all those symptoms together into understanding that I had migraine, and then finding a way to help myself, because that's the main thing, isn't it? To be able to find a way to reduce those symptoms so that you can better live a fuller life, because that is one of the huge consequences of migraine, is that you miss out on so much. You have to kind of push yourself through certain events in life, and particularly within the work environment. It's not so easy to keep saying to people, oh, I'm not feeling that good today, I'm feeling out of sorts. At some point people were just like, well, why not? Just take a tablet of some sort and, have a cup of tea and you'll be better. And you think to yourself, right, I'm just going to have to plow on, despite the fact that I'm feeling pretty unwell and kind of not myself. How I see it very often is that I'm kind of mismatched with myself. There's myself, and then there's this other part of me that's like a shadow, and they're misaligned. It's like I'm kind of beside myself. It's that's the image that I have in my head. It's I'm not really fitting together properly. Things are just not quite working in the way that they're supposed to. There's just kind of discombobulation going on. That's how I would describe my symptoms, how I was feeling. And often it would be before my menstrual cycle, during my menstrual cycle, after my menstrual cycle, and then I'd have maybe 3 or 4 days where I did not have those symptoms, and it was amazing and wonderful. And in the end, what I also, looking back now, I remember my mum also as a teenager suffering from, severely incapacitated days where she would be in her bedroom in a darkened room, with the curtains closed, with severe pain down her back and in her head, and she would also throw up. And I really felt so sorry for her, and I was thinking to myself, my goodness, I hope that doesn't happen to me. I hope that I don't get something similar when I get to my mum's age. And my mum was, at that time, I guess she was probably in her 50s. And yeah, it was kind of a scary thought. But, when you're young, you just think, okay, well, I hope that doesn't happen. And then basically it did happen. One thing that my mum had that I haven't, which I'm very fortunate about, is the visualization. I don't have issues with my sight, but my sister, I'm one of three sisters. One of my sisters does suffer from migraines, and she has issues with her sight and not being able to see properly when she has the migraines. And in some ways that did help her to get a quicker diagnosis, because there was definitely something the matter then. She was advised by a friend, a medical student, when she was at university, who said, maybe you should get that checked out about your eyes not being able to see properly, and like having double vision and things like that. And her doctors did indicate to her that they felt that she had migraines and that they could be treated. And she went through different regimes and she found a good treatment that worked for her. But it did not involve like some of the things that I was experiencing. So we never kind of like, even though we had really great communication in our household and as sisters, I just didn't like fit together, like, oh, I have migraines. I just didn't figure that out. The way that I discovered that I had migraines was really because they were getting worse. The symptoms were getting worse and worse, and I was having days where I wasn't able to function at all. Like I would have to like be off sick work, and not be able to go into my workplace and perform at all. In I had to just stay in bed. It's just an effort to lift my head and to lift my body out of the bed. So this happened like nearly every weekend, and I was just so exhausted from it. You just, those symptoms are overwhelming, having all these pains and throwing up and, the tastes and the sounds, and you go into this inner world of endurance, really. The outside world just sort of dissipates because you just have to focus in on yourself and just kind of endure the situation that's like rolling over you like waves. And it's also suffocating because you feel like you're in this dark space. It's very lonely. You're just there by yourself, and like you're under this cloud on your own, and you don't know if you can find your way out. That's terrifying, actually, because you're sort of thinking, what if I'm stuck in this space forever? Especially for me, when things were starting to happen more frequently in this manner, it was quite frightening to think, like, will I be able to crawl out of this situation that I'm in and find a better place to be and find my way through? I was very fortunate that a set of situations happened whereby I was at work and I'd finished a meeting. It was quite an intense meeting, and it had come to a very good conclusion, and I left the meeting and I was holding a cup of coffee in my hand, and I had this sensation that I might drop the cup because I felt like I wasn't able to hold the cup properly anymore. I was like kind of losing my grip on the cup, and I put the cup down, of course, and was quite alarmed. I was thinking, oh my goodness, what does this mean? Does it mean that I've had like a little mini stroke of some sort? Like, why did I lose sensation in my hand? That you hear about this kind of like feelings of losing sensation in your hand and your arm and things as a consequence of a precursor to stroke or something. So I sought medical advice and was actually checked out at the hospital in the accident and emergency, and they did a huge amount of tests while I was there. They were fantastic. They did Doppler scans on my brain, and they did all kinds of tests and checks. And the outcome was that I was absolutely normal. I had not had any kind of pulmonary event, like a heart-related circulatory event at all. That I was quite normal. But what they did notice, there was some like little freckles on my brain, and they said that's often associated with people that suffer from migraine. Do you suffer from migraine? And I was like, do I suffer from migraine? I don't know, do I? Maybe I do. And with that sort of triggered information, I went to my GP, who'd also got the notes from the hospital and everything, and I mentioned to him that, do you think that, you know, what I have been experiencing, all these different things, could be migraine? And he said, you know, I think it would be great if you went to a neurologist and got that checked out. Would you like to do that? And I said, yes. Went to a neurologist. She was fantastic. I really, honestly, within minutes of being in her office and her having already looked at my notes, she said it's absolutely consistent with migraine, your symptoms that you're having, what, you know, the little freckles on your brain, that just is very, very aligned with people that have migraines, and all the symptoms that you've just been describing to me now, I've just mentioned, that's extremely aligned with migraine. So yeah, you have migraine. And that then began my journey on trying to find the right regime for me, which in itself is a journey, and it varies as well, you know, depending on so many different other factors. So you do have to take quite a holistic approach to how you manage yourself and your life. So maybe some lifestyle changes you need to consider, as well as, you know, the medications and things that you could take to help you. So I hope this message is helpful to those women that might be wondering what they have, or ignoring themselves in a way, like disregarding themselves. That's certainly what I did. I was just like, oh, you know, it's just maybe, you know, me, my situation as a woman, you know, I just, and in fact, there were signs of something else that I wasn't aware of, and I could have got better help earlier than what I did. My daughter also suffers from migraine, so she's well informed. And I hope that this message on behalf of the Women's Brain Project will help to bring more information and enlightenment and empowerment to women that may be suffering from migraines, and need to have that validation, really, that, you know, you are important, and how you feel is so important, and it isn't nothing. It is potentially something. Seek the help, inform yourself, and find the way to live a better life, to live a fuller life, to live more than just like surviving through the days, and find a place where you can really kind of embrace your life more fully and thrive.